The gift of silence. The morning sun cast long shadows across the marble floors of the Sterling mansion. Eleanor stood at the window of her daughter's room, watching Maya sit perfectly still on the garden bench below. At 16, Maya had never spoken a word, not since the day she was born. The doctors had no explanation. Her vocal cords were fine. There was no medical reason for her silence. Eleanor's husband, Richard Sterling, believed their daughter's condition was something to hide. He had built an empire in technology, but he could not fix what he saw as broken in his own child. So Maya lived in a world of expensive silence, surrounded by therapists and specialists who came and went like the changing seasons. But Maya did not feel broken. She heard everything. She understood everything. And through her silence, she had learned to see things others missed. It was a Tuesday afternoon when everything changed. The gardener had fallen ill, and the estate manager had hired a temporary replacement. Eleanor watched from the window as a young boy, no more than 12 years old, walked through the gates carrying tools that seemed too heavy for his small frame. His name was Isaiah. He wore clothes that had been mended many times, and his shoes were held together with duct tape. His mother worked 3 jobs to keep food on their table, and Isaiah spent his afternoons helping wherever he could find work. Maya saw him from her bench. She watched as he struggled with the heavy wheelbarrow, his thin arms straining. Without thinking, she stood and walked toward him. The staff knew not to interfere when Maya made her own choices, so they watched quietly as the billionaire's daughter approached the poor boy with the gentle eyes. Isaiah looked up, startled. He had been warned about the family. Do your work, keep your head down, do not bother them. But this girl was standing right in front of him, and she was smiling. Maya pointed to the wheelbarrow, then to herself. Isaiah shook his head. I cannot let you do that, miss. I would lose this job. But Maya was already gripping one side of the wheelbarrow. She looked at him with such determination that Isaiah found himself smiling back. Together, they pushed it across the lawn. That was how it began. A friendship that would shake the foundations of everything Richard Sterling believed about worth and value and what truly mattered in this world. Every Tuesday and Thursday, Isaiah came to work on the grounds. And every Tuesday and Thursday, Maya found her way to wherever he was working. At first, the staff was nervous. They reported it to Eleanor, who said nothing. They mentioned it to Richard, who was too busy with board meetings to care about what his silent daughter did with her afternoons. Isaiah talked to Maya as if her silence did not matter. He told her about his mother, who sang hymns while she cleaned office buildings at night. He told her about his little sister, who was 6 and wanted to be a doctor. He told her about the books he borrowed from the library, reading by flashlight under his blanket because they shared one lamp in their apartment. And Maya listened. Really listened. She carried a small notebook now, and she wrote responses that made Isaiah laugh and think and sometimes sit quietly, absorbing her words. You see things different, Isaiah said one afternoon as they sat beneath the old oak tree. Most people, they look at me and see what I do not have. You look at me and see me. Maya wrote in her notebook, most people look at me and see what I cannot do. You look at me and see me. Isaiah read it and nodded slowly. I guess we are the same that way. Months passed. Summer turned to fall. The friendship between Maya and Isaiah deepened into something the world rarely sees, a connection built on pure understanding, uncluttered by judgment or expectation. Eleanor noticed the change in her daughter. Maya smiled more. She seemed lighter somehow, as if a weight had lifted. One afternoon, Eleanor walked into the garden and sat down beside Isaiah, who was pulling weeds near the rose bushes. My daughter seems happy when you are here, Eleanor said quietly. Isaiah looked up, nervous. I hope that is okay, ma'am. I have never treated her like she was different. I know, Eleanor said. And that is exactly why she is happy. But not everyone saw it the same way. Richard Sterling came home early one Thursday and saw them together, Maya and Isaiah, sitting under the oak tree. Maya was teaching Isaiah something on her tablet, both of them absorbed in whatever was on the screen. Eleanor, Richard called sharply from the patio. What is this? Eleanor came outside. They are friends, Richard. Friends. Richard's voice carried across the lawn. Our daughter does not need friends like that. What will people think? People. Eleanor turned to face her husband. Or you. The argument that followed was not loud, but it was final. Richard Sterling demanded that Isaiah be let go immediately. He would not have some poor kid hanging around his daughter, giving people the wrong impression about the family. Eleanor stood her ground for the first time in years. If he goes, I go. And I take Maya with me. Richard stared at his wife. You would not dare. Try me, Eleanor said quietly. The standoff lasted 3 days. Richard Sterling was a man used to winning, but he had never seen this steel in his wife's eyes. Finally, he relented, but with conditions. Isaiah could stay, but only as an employee. There would be boundaries. There would be rules. Maya did not know about the argument. But she sensed something had shifted. Her father, who rarely spoke to her, suddenly appeared in the garden one Saturday morning. Maya, he said, sitting down across from her. I need you to understand something. The world is not kind. People will use you. They will see your mother's money and my name, and they will take advantage. Maya looked at her father with those clear, seeing eyes. She picked up her notebook and wrote, Is that what you think of me? That I cannot tell the difference between real and fake. Richard read the words and felt something crack inside him. When had his daughter become so wise? I think, he said slowly, that I have been protecting you from the wrong things. Winter came, and with it, Isaiah's 12th birthday. He did not tell anyone, but Maya had seen the date written in the corner of his school notebook. She convinced her mother to let her plan something small. On the Thursday afternoon before his birthday, Maya led Isaiah to the greenhouse. Inside, the staff had set up a small table with a cake, simple and homemade, the way Isaiah's mother used to make before money got too tight. Isaiah stared at the cake, at the single candle, at Maya's proud smile. You did this for me. Maya nodded and handed him a gift, wrapped carefully in paper she had painted herself. Inside was a book, a beautiful hardcover edition of his favorite story, the one he had read 3 times from the library's battered copy. Maya, I cannot, Isaiah whispered. This is too much. Maya wrote quickly, a real friend is never too much. Isaiah wiped his eyes and laughed at himself. I am crying over a book. Maya wrote again, you are crying because someone saw you. That is worth crying about. Eleanor watched from the doorway, her own eyes wet. And beside her, having come home early from work, stood Richard Sterling. He watched his daughter with this poor boy, watched the pure joy between them, and understood something he had spent his whole life missing. Worth was not measured in bank accounts. Value was not determined by the size of someone's house. His daughter, whom he had pitied for her silence, had taught a lesson to a boy who had nothing, who now had everything that mattered. Richard Sterling cleared his throat and walked into the greenhouse. Both children looked up, surprised. Isaiah, Richard said. I understand you are good with numbers. Isaiah nodded cautiously. My company has a scholarship program for exceptional students. I would like to nominate you. The words hung in the air. Eleanor's hand flew to her mouth. Maya's face broke into the widest smile Richard had ever seen. Sir, I do not understand, Isaiah said. My daughter has taught me something, Richard said, looking at Maya. She has taught me that silence can speak louder than words. And you have taught her that friendship does not care about circumstances. Those are lessons worth more than anything I learned in business school. Isaiah looked at Maya, who was nodding encouragingly. I would be honored, sir. The years that followed were not always easy. There were people who whispered about the Sterling family and their charity case. There were moments when Isaiah felt out of place in the world of private schools and country clubs. There were times when Maya's silence frustrated her, when she wished she could shout down the people who underestimated her. But through it all, they had each other. Maya went to every one of Isaiah's debate competitions, sitting in the front row, applauding in sign language. Isaiah learned to read Maya's expressions better than most people read words, understanding her thoughts before she wrote them down. When Isaiah graduated at the top of his class and earned a full scholarship to college, Maya was there. When Maya's artwork was featured in a gallery, proving that silence could create beauty that spoke volumes, Isaiah was there. Eleanor and Richard learned too. They learned that love was not about fixing people or hiding them or being ashamed. Love was about seeing someone fully and celebrating exactly who they were. On Maya's 18th birthday, the family gathered in the garden under the old oak tree. Isaiah, home from his first year of college, brought a gift. I wrote something, he said, handing Maya a bound notebook. You have been writing to me for years. I thought it was time I wrote back. Maya opened the notebook and began to read. It was a story, their story, written from Isaiah's perspective. Every moment, every conversation, every lesson learned. She read through tears, through laughter, through the full spectrum of human emotion. And when she finished, she did something no one expected. She spoke. One word, quiet and clear. Beautiful. The garden went silent. Eleanor gasped. Richard stood frozen. Isaiah smiled. I knew you could, Isaiah said softly. I always knew. Maya wrote in her own notebook, her hand shaking, I chose silence because the world was too loud. But you taught me that some things are worth speaking for. That evening, as the sun set over the Sterling estate, 4 people sat under an oak tree and understood what true wealth meant. It was not counted in dollars. It was measured in moments like these, in friendships that crossed every divide, in families that learned to see past their own limitations. Richard Sterling had spent his life building an empire. But his daughter, in her gentle silence, had built something far greater. She had built a bridge between 2 worlds, proving that the human heart recognizes no boundaries when it comes to authentic connection. And Isaiah, the poor boy with the gentle eyes and the hand-me-down clothes, had given the billionaire's family the gift they needed most. He had shown them that every person has value, that every voice matters, even the silent ones, and that sometimes the greatest wisdom comes from those the world overlooks. Maya would speak more as time went on, but she would never lose her love of silence. In the quiet, she had learned to hear what others missed. And that gift, born from what some saw as limitation, had changed everything. The real miracle was not that Maya found her voice. The real miracle was that everyone around her finally learned to listen. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to our channel for more stories that celebrate the human spirit. Leave a comment below telling us about a time when an unexpected friendship changed your life. Your story might inspire someone else today.